Good. So everybody here really is preparing to start medical school in September 2024. That's good. And so that means that most people here are either probably have just recently started year 12, or maybe have just entered their second year of university, or maybe they're just doing a full-time job and are just navigating their way to get ready. So that's really good because as I'll talk about very shortly, it's so important to start early. Medicine is so competitive these days, and the sooner you start, and the more effort and time you can put into the application, the higher your chances of success. Because as I'll show you the stats very soon, it's incredibly competitive these days, medicine, and it's getting more competitive, and the places as it stands are staying the same. So really have to do everything within our power to stand out. And the sooner you start to do that and start making efforts towards that, the better your chances. I'm going to talk about today what we need to be doing and how we need to do it to make sure that we are some of the small minority of people that apply to medicine, the 16% that apply to medicine that get in. So, first, so let's go for the second question. What is your biggest worry about applying? So again, just in the chat, you can say one word. Is it personal statement? Is it UCAT? Is it whatever it is? Pop it in the chat, and well, I'll kind of tailor what we discuss to answer those questions. So we've got UCAT, applying strategically for graduate medical schools. Yeah, absolutely. That's something that we'll talk about. UCAT's always a big one for people. Okay, good. Because I'm not doing the GAMSAT, just UCAT. Yeah, that's a common thing as well. And when you're applying as a grad, the goalposts are they're quite high, and you do have to perform really well in the UCAT. You have to perform well in the UCAT anyway, but for grads the bar's even higher. So right, let's dive into the talk. So obviously we're talking about how to get into not just any medical school, but your first choice medical school. So when I coach my students that are on my program, what we're aiming for is not to just about make it, right? What we're aiming to be the best that we can be. You can't get a score out of 100 for the med school application, but if you were, we're aiming for 100. And that's how we separate ourselves from the competition, because it's like that kind of so good they can't ignore you mentality. Because if you are, like I say, 100 out of 100, then it doesn't matter about the competition, because you'll definitely beat them, because you're just such a fantastic applicant that they can't help but offer you a place, right? So that's kind of how I think about it, and how we're going to teach you to build that sort of level today. And that's because we want to get into our first choice medical school, right? There are so many medical schools, and everybody has a dream one that they want to go to. And if you build an application that suits that university, you can get there. So it's not just about getting into any medical school, it's about getting into the one that you really want to. And that's what we do at FutureDoc, is we help people who are trying to get into their first choice medical school. So just a little bit about me. So my name's Dr. Ashley Hilton, but please just call me Dr. Ash. So I graduated medicine in 2013, and I very quickly decided that I wanted to go into surgery. And after that, it was just a case of deciding which surgical specialty was for me. I just loved surgery because I loved how in most cases, you see a problem. And for me, I was on general surgery, which is life-saving surgery of people who have really serious illnesses. They come in on death's door, and you do one operation, and often you can save their life and completely fix them from the problem in that one operation. It's a fantastic skill and amazingly fulfilling thing to be able to offer somebody with your skills. So that was me convinced that I wanted to do surgery. And then it was just a case of picking which surgical specialty. So I systematically went through all of them. So neurosurgery, cardiac surgery, plastics, ears, nose, and throat, orthopedics, all of them. But then when I came across maxillofacial surgery, I knew that that was the one for me. And so what I needed to do was go back and do a dental degree, because maxillofacial surgery is a combination of, like I say, neurosurgery, ears, nose, and throat, orthopedics. It kind of takes all the different bits from there and is kind of like um, a hybrid specialty where it also looks at everything to do with face and mouth as well. So to do that, you have to hold a dentistry degree as well. So I had to go back and apply to dental school to do this. So I had to. Well, the full story is that during my time at medical school and in the run up to this, I had been helping medical students get in, and I was sitting on interview panels, and I was helping as a medical school selector or medical school admissions tutor. So what was funny was that I was teaching all of this stuff, but then I applied this to get into my dental program, because the dental program I did was at King's College London, and it was the only one in Europe that allows medical doctors to get in to do dentistry in 3 years instead of 5. So there were hundreds of applicants and there's only 10 places. And I applied the stuff that I'm going to teach you today and the stuff that I've been teaching on my students. I applied exactly what it is that I was doing and teaching to my students, and used that to get in, and luckily got one of those very few 10 places that were available. So there we go. So during that time, this company started because I was helping people as a favor while I was at medical school, and we managed to get loads of people in, and I actually started with international students who have a 6% success rate, so incredibly competitive. And just from helping them, like it was through friends. It was my housemate's sister, my housemate's younger sister to start with, and then she asked if I could help her friends, and then they asked if I could help their friends, and that's how this business started. And recently we turned it into an online platform, and as you probably see from some of the stuff that I've put on YouTube, we've had really good success with getting students in, and we turn that 16% success rate, or 6% for internationals, at 16 for the rest, and make it way higher for you guys. So that's a little bit about me and kind of why I don't like talking about me too much, but it's just to give you an idea of where I am and where we've come from to be where we are today, and how we help people and the kind of success level that we have. So here's the issue, right? Last year, we don't have data for 2023 entry yet, but now that the UCAS deadline expired on the 15th of October, we should kind of, as we're entering November, have the most recent data. But here's the stats from the year before. So medicine applications year on year have been increasing. So they were up 3.5% last year from the year before, and they have the reapplicants had gone up 28%. There are only 9,500 places available. So it's incredibly competitive, and it's only getting more and more competitive. So let's talk about, so the thing that I want to get across to you is that applying to medicine is a game, right? There are certain elements to the med school application that if you can play the game really well and just go through the steps and really tick each box that you need to tick in the best way possible, then you will raise the standard of your application to the level that gives you a really good chance of getting in. And that is what I was saying. This is how I teach my students. We aim for, that 100 out of 100. And if we're that good, we're not so worried about the competition, because we're just so strong that they have to offer us a place. So I'm going to do a quick breakout room just to kind of, it's nice to keep these things interactive. So this is a chance for you guys. Let me just admit a couple of people who are coming late. So this is a chance for you guys to get to know other people who are applying. It can sometimes be a bit of a lonely journey to apply to medical school. So what I want you to do is maybe take a screenshot of this, just so that you can remember the questions. But I'm going to do groups of groups of 4. And what I want you to do is just introduce yourself. Someone keep time. Just make sure everybody's on time for 2 minutes each. Just tell them briefly where you'd like to apply. And I'm going to ask you guys after this, what do you think is the most important aspect of the medical school application? So I'm going to pop you in breakout rooms now. Like I say, we're going to do groups of 4. So how many of us are there here? Okay, great. So let's do 4 breakout rooms. And then I'm going to post in there what to say. So let's do here. Okay, great. Did no one? So what did people think in the chat? Was it the personal statement? Was it the UCAT? What did people think was the best and most important? The interview. Anybody have any other ideas? About getting work experience is one of the hardest things, yeah. Especially as a grad, I think getting a good UCAT score is really important. Yeah, absolutely. How to stand out from the crowd. Yeah, lovely, and that's what we'll talk about today. Okay, good. UCAT and personal statement, and funding is difficult. Yeah, funding is really important. So actually, what I'm going to do at the end of this is I'm going to send you an email with a few resources to talk about how you can stand out. So some free stuff on YouTube for how to get a really good UCAT score. Also, funding is such an important part, especially as a graduate or a mature student. Funding is really difficult and really an important aspect to look at, because for grads, sometimes you can get people, it's tragic, but sometimes people get a place and then they can't actually afford to take it. So we need to make sure we have that in place ahead of time. Okay, so right. So let's move on. So I know that you were probably wondering, why is there a MasterChef logo here? But during lockdown, I was actually watching a lot of MasterChef, and I realized that it's very similar to the medical school application. And here's why: because when you think of preparing a really nice meal that is going to get good reviews and win MasterChef, or get you through to the next round, there are certain elements that need to happen. So firstly, you need good ingredients, and a great meal is usually served with the best ingredients, the best sourced ingredients, the best elements that make up the dish. But then also there's the preparation. It's how you make them. You could give a great chef and a terrible chef the same ingredients, and if they prepare them badly, if you burn something or if you don't prepare it right, then it will be the two people serving the same food, one meal will be great and one will be horrible. Presentation, you've got to make it look pretty. You've got to present, you've got to give that dish in the best, make it look as nice as possible. This is how you put across your medical school application, how you present the things that you've done. And finally, who you serve it to. If you serve a steak to a vegan, it's not going to be particularly appetizing for them, and they're not going to be very impressed. So this is about choosing which medical schools you apply to, because that is such an important part of it as well. And really, this question that we had before about which is the most important aspect of the medical school, it's almost a trick question in a sense, because they're all important, and all of these need to be on point to get that 100 out of 100 that I'm talking about, to build an incredibly strong med school application. So here's to give you an idea of here's the timeline of what the med school application looks like, right? So let's use the end point being the date that you start medical school. So let's say you're starting medical school September 2024. As I said before, that means that you submit your application September 2023, and then you really should start preparing a year before. So, as I say, the sooner you start and the more time you put into your medical application, the stronger you will make your application. And as I say to all of my students, it's not a linear progression. What will happen is, as you do the right things on your journey to medical school, your one experience will lead to another, which will lead to another, which will lead to another. And then before you know it, it's not just a linear progress. You're doing exponential growth really with how you build your application, because that, like I say, one thing leads to another, and before you know it, my students, we reviewed them at 6 months of being on the program, and we just look at their application and they're unrecognizable from what they were before because of the amazing things that they've done and the luck that has led to, because you make your own luck with these things, and that has led to more experience, and that has made them even stronger, and then led onto other things. And you look at the applicant that came 6 months ago and the applicant that's in front of you now, and they're unrecognizable one to the next. So this is why I want to stress that it's really important to start now. And the first bits of the preparation I'm going to talk about is, well, let's move on and talk about the kind of elements that make up. But there are 4 phases. Now, the phases of the med school application, firstly, we want to build experience. So it's really important to have great work experience. We touched on that before, outstanding extracurriculars, any additional exams that you need. So for some people, maybe if you're an international student, you need to sit the IELTS. If you're, let's say, some people come to me who don't have the best GCSEs. So typically you'll need a 6, some universities a 7 in maths and English language. So sometimes we have to resit those. Or it could just be making sure that we have the right things required to be eligible. So eligibility is a big part of getting into the right medical school. So we need to make sure that we have the credentials needed to kind of pass their first test of, should we even look at this person's application? Do they fit the minimum criteria? So making sure that we're thinking about that and getting ourselves ready for all those things. Then the second phase is the exam prep. Now, like I say, the aptitude tests. So I'm not sure how much people know about aptitude tests at the moment. So let's just, before I talk about this, in the chat quickly, do people, it's hard to gauge how much people understand about the UCAT, but yes or no, do you know about the UCAT? Are you aware that you have to sit an exam? So yes, if you know. So someone took the UCAT last year. Is it Dreyer and Catherine? Yes. So we all know about the UCAT, right? And so we're all aware of that we have to kind of be aiming really for the top 2 deciles to take control of the application, I would say. There's nothing guaranteed. There's never anything guaranteed. But when you get in the top 2 deciles, the chances of you being invited to interview, as long as you've kind of made sure that you've done well with phase 1, that you can give yourself a very good chance of being invited to interview. And then that's when we take control of the application. So these are things that are going to give us control over the application. Now, there are 3 potential aptitude tests that you might have to take. One is the UCAT, which almost everybody takes the UCAT. Now, the GAMSAT is one that is only for graduates and only for about half of the graduate programs that are available. And then the other one is the BMAT, which mostly is for 8 universities. So the BMAT is one that some people will sit both. Sorry, I'm in central London, so the police sirens, let me just shut the window. Police sirens are ubiquitous in London, so just shut that out. So as I was saying, with these aptitude tests, the BMAT out of the 44 medical schools, we've got a few new this year, so about 47 medical schools, only 8 require the BMAT for undergrad. There's only one that requires the BMAT for grad. It's only Oxford grad. So the BMAT is one that is sat a little bit less, and the GAMSAT also less. But the likelihood is that most people will be sitting the UCAT. Now, the BMAT is typically something that is sat for those who are looking at either Oxford or Cambridge, or if they want to go to UCL or Imperial, Leeds, Brighton, Lancaster, so those universities. And yeah, they're all important to score highly in because they all make up the ingredients that make your med school application. So why am I talking about these phases? Because the more, like I keep saying, the earlier you start, the more you do, the better your chances. Because what we want to do is we want to have all of this stuff taken care of before we get to this phase. Because what happens is, if you are able to do all of this stuff, you're building a really strong application, and then you can almost either set this on autopilot. All of this stuff can either be done, arranged, or on autopilot, so that then you can almost forget about it and move on and focus solely on this one. Then you've got really good space to make sure you do as well as you can with these, and then you can focus on the next phase. Because what happens if you don't, and if you're not organized, is that this one spills into this one. So you're trying to arrange your work experience while you're trying to prepare for your UCAT. Then you might have to bump your UCAT back a little bit. And I'll talk about the next phase, which is crunch time. And you're dealing with all of these things while you're trying to focus on the next stage. So the more organized you can be and take care of one thing at a time, it means that you can be singularly focused on each stage, and then you can really give yourself the best chance of doing well in each of those. Because, as we know, multitasking is not tasking. It means that you spread your focus and you do a not so good job in all of them, rather than just doing one at a time and doing it well. So work experience, I'm going to send you a video. So work experience comprises 3 elements. It's your shadowing. So shadowing is, do people understand? Let's see. So there are 3, like I say, there are 3 elements of work experience. In the chat, could people tell me what they think those 3 are? Let's see if people understand what work experience is. Okay, a bit quiet in the chat. Maybe people don't know. Placement. So yeah, I would call that shadowing. Yeah. Volunteering, shadowing, and paid work. Yeah. Nabila, well done. Yeah, so good. I'm doing work experience as a HCA, paid. Yeah, fantastic. Great. So yeah, 3 elements of work experience are shadowing. So that is when you only do 1 or 2 of these, and total I would recommend probably if you get more, great, but about 2 weeks is fine. And that is when you either go into a hospital or a GP practice and you are a fly on the wall. You just literally sit there or stand there and observe what a doctor does. And that is quite simply, you try and get an understanding of what the role of a doctor is, what the realities of medicine are, understand, get to speak to them and understand a little bit about their life, and really just demonstrating that you have the passion and the drive enough to organize a placement like this, but also you have an understanding of what you're getting yourself in for, that you understand the career and it has not put you off. The second thing of work experience is volunteering. Now, this is where you are showing to the medical school selectors that you are self-sacrificing, that you can give back to people, and that you are somebody who is just really willing to give back to your community. Now, there are lots of ways that you can do this, but I would always say that if you can, working in a care home is usually one of the best ways, but that's usually difficult for people who are under the age of 18. But you can do it, but it is quite difficult. Then The other thing that you could do is just anything that is a charity that is close to your heart, or a cause that is close to your heart. Because naturally, if you're passionate about something, you will kind of automatically do something that is standout. So there are lots of ways, and on the FutureDoc program, we sit down with students individually and look at how all those three elements of work experience are going to be maximized to make the most out of it and to really stand out. One of the other areas is paid work. Now, in the chat, Catherine put about working as a HCA, and yes, fantastic work experience as a HCA, because that is probably, without being a doctor or without having maybe the qualifications to be like a physiotherapist or something like that, without holding a degree in one of the allied healthcare professions, healthcare assistant, is the closest thing that you can do to being a doctor without being a doctor at that stage with that experience. So a fantastic role if you're over 18. Under 18, there are lots of things that you can do. The best thing that I did was when I turned 16, and actually the reason I got into medicine was when I was 16, I got a job at my local hospital giving out the sandwiches on the ward, and it was purely because at the age of 16 that was the best paid job I could get, because they used to pay double time on Sundays and all that sort of stuff. And I didn't really consider medicine before then, but working in hospital, I really enjoyed I just enjoyed speaking to patients. I enjoyed going around the wards and finding out about their diseases and all the stuff that they were having done in terms of their operations. And that is what sparked my interest for medicine. But also, it was the most amazing opportunity in terms of building a strong med school application, because it meant that I spent loads of time on the ward. I kind of joke that I had more patient contact then serving the sandwiches with patients than I do now as a doctor. So really, really good for that. Helped me arrange my shadowing. It helped me arrange my volunteer work. So things like that will really set the base for you having a strong application. So those are the elements of work experience. So in the chat, Catherine's asked, would working somewhere like 111 be considered work experience? Absolutely. Especially if you're doing it in a volunteering capacity. That's a really good way, because 111, you're assessing patients. Some people are quite sick who call 111 and actually need 999 and need an ambulance. So it's your job to make that patient assessment. And that's what being a doctor is. You have a case in front of you. You make your assessment of what's is this patient sick? Are they really sick? Do we need to kind of start pulling out the big guns to intervene and treat them? And that's a big part of it. So as 111, again, it's something that's close to being a doctor as close to being a doctor without being a doctor that you can get. Question from Fatima: if you're taking a gap year and doing a secretarial role in the hospital, would that help? Of course. Anything that you're doing that's giving you exposure to medicine is helpful. The most important thing that I will tell you from anything that you do experientially, so all of that work experience, is it's not what you do, it's what you get out of it. Your reflection and your ability to kind of extract the important stuff from it and then reflect that in your personal statement, in your interview, and just throughout the med school application process is going to be the most important part of it, which is why keeping a diary is so important. If you keep a diary, you will, because you'll forget stuff, and also you won't remember stuff to talk about when it comes to writing your personal statement or when it comes to interview. So if you can keep a diary of all of that stuff, you can just remember the really good little details of the story that make it a really, really effective story. So would a healthcare support worker role be helpful in the gap year? Yes, absolutely. Anything healthcare related, anything where you're looking after people, anything that gives you patient contact is something that will score points, so to speak. Okay. So So that's phase one. And I'm sorry, I've talked about phase two. So phase two is mainly around the aptitude tests and balancing that around uh, your like the rest of your life. So, i.e., your uni exams, your school exams, because what we want to do is make sure that we are not affecting the performance in either. So we want to plan our preparation and plan our exams so that they have, firstly, enough time to prepare, enough time for a plan B if they don't go to plan, and thirdly, have minimal impact on other things, i.e., your school exams. Because everything we do for the med school application, if you don't get the grades for uni or school, then all of this is for nothing. If you get a conditional offer and you don't make the grade, then you don't realize the offer. So that's important as well. So there are three phases to the, I know we're talking about 4 phases here, but there are 3 parts to preparing for the aptitude tests. And like I say, after this, I'll give you some free videos that I've put out on YouTube that are going to help you understand how you prepare for the UCAT and if you're doing the BMAT and the GAMSAT as well. But it's really important to be able, I'm going to come off just so you can see my face a little bit more now. When it comes to those, sorry, I'm just going to spotlight myself. So when it comes to the aptitude test, it's really important to firstly lay the foundations. So this is the thing where people say you can burn out if you spend too much time preparing for the UCAT. And that's true if you do the later stages too soon. So the 3 stages of preparing yourself for the UCAT, and it's the same for the BMAT and the GAMSAT. First, familiarization, help understand all of the question types, all the information that you need, so i.e. all the material, the techniques for answering the questions as quickly as possible, and all the stuff around it to just help you understand what you need to know when it comes to the second stage, which is practice questions. Then the final stage is increasing the speed to be and doing mock tests to be ready for the exam, because that is the most difficult bit. And this is where we have got lots of students on the FutureDoc program that have not done well in, so they previous to joining us, they've not done well in the UCAT. They've maybe got a 2,300, 2,400, and they've come to us and we've helped them with a second attempt at getting into medical school, and we've got them with how we teach it to a 3,000 plus, and that is what we aim for. We aim for about 3,000 because that puts you in the top 3 to 5%. And again, this is all about taking control of the med school application. So you're in the driving seat rather than at the mercy of the medical school selectors. So that is just another element that if you are getting that kind of score, then you are putting yourself in a position where they can't not invite you to interview. And when once they invite you to interview, you're really in the driving seat because you are in control of your interview. You can dictate how well that goes. And again, in this era of med school applications being really competitive, I'm seeing a lot of people, non FutureDoc members, I'm seeing a lot of people now get 4 interviews and not a single offer. So they've had 4 opportunities to convert their interview into an offer, and they've not got one of them. And that's because everything that contributes towards it, we prepare for now. So we're preparing for interviews right away because that's all in the knowledge that you gain. So like I say, in the phase 1 prep, it's all about you gaining your knowledge to understand all the common things that come up around medicine in interviews, and you need to show during your personal statement, and that will come up in things like the SJT of the UCAT and parts of the GAMSAT. So, it's all about doing the work early to make sure that you're ready. So finally, let's go on to the next stage, which is crunch time. So you'll have probably spent phase 1 arranging your work experience, but usually in the summer prior to submitting your application, that's when people actually do their shadowing placement. If you can do it in Easter, that's great. I mean, you guys have a lot of time now. If you can do it over the Christmas holidays, that would be brilliant as well. This is all happening in the kind of summer prior to submitting your application. So tactical university selection, as I said, you could cook the nicest meal and serve it to the wrong person, and you won't be, and they won't like it. So we it's a really important thing to choose your med schools. And I've got, again, I'll show you some videos on YouTube where I talk about med school selection and how important it is. And it's a big part of how I teach my students, actually. So we sit down for hours with students and look at, for their individual circumstances, which 4 universities, because you only get 4, which are we going to go for that suit that person? So really important. At that point, you'll be writing your personal statement, and you also need to get a referee to write a statement for you. And those 2 things are really important as well. And then finally, if all of that goes to plan and you've done that well, then it's interviews. And again, I say, don't underestimate interviews. They're so important, because it's really the culmination of everything that you've done in these first 3 phases. If you've done these well, the interview, that you're really in a position where all you need to do now is just demonstrate to them that you are the kind of person that you've put across in these other 3 phases. And we spend a lot of time here preparing students for interview, because it is something that you need to. If you think about some universities where it's so, like Cambridge, 80% of people that apply get invited to interview at Cambridge. So they do a lot of their culling at that stage. But a lot of universities are, they're about 1 in 6 sometimes the interview are actually invited and given a place. For example, some of our students, we got into Newcastle last year. They were 1 in 42. So one applicant in 42 got offered a place at medical school. And we got a few people into that course because we got them we got them interview ready and so well prepared that they absolutely nailed the interview, and they, realized that offer. Now, if you think about a 1 in 6 people being interviewed to 1 offer, that's about 16%, something like that. You really need to absolutely nail that interview to be in the top kind of, let's say, 15% for a bit of breathing space to do that. So how do you separate yourself to be in that real top segment to be offered a place? Catherine, I'll answer that question in a minute. Let's save some questions for the end. Okay, so like I say, we'll just go back to this analogy of ingredients, how we prepare them, how we present them, and who we serve it to. So just take a sip of water. So, the ingredients. What are the main elements that we need to see people doing well? Well, firstly, like I say, we need the grades. Secondly, we need the personal traits. We want to see that you're the kind of person that can will make a good doctor, that has the makings of a good doctor. They don't want to see the finished article. They understand that they're going to train you for anything from 4 to 6 years to become a doctor. But they just want to see the foundations are there, that you're the right kind of person. And I'll talk about all of these bits individually and how to demonstrate those. Another part of the traits is, we talked about the aptitude test. It's that you have the aptitude to be a doctor. You have the mental acumen, and that's what these are testing. They also want to see that you've got the commitment and exposed yourself enough to the profession so that you know what you're getting yourself in for, that you're passionate about medicine, and you've got some baseline knowledge just to demonstrate that you are aware of the field and you're aware of what you're getting yourself in for. The other thing is, how do you show that you're, not just your average person, that you're well-rounded, that you're driven, that you are doing things that your peers haven't done? And so extracurricular. So think of things that you can stand out with by doing. Again, like I say, we'll go into all of these in a little bit more depth. So preparation, we talked about shadowing and paid work and volunteering. the three things that make up work experience, but other things like reading about the career, studying anything from, you can do research placements over the summer, you can do MOOCs and all the other stuff that kind of shows your interest, attend talks, everything like that, that's going to really show that you're dedicated to the career and you're interested and you're hungry to learn more. Okay, so again, we talked about preparing for the aptitude test and the 3 stages that we need to make sure we get a really good score there. And then talked about hobbies and achievements. So things, I always say that what they want to see is in the extracurricular section, they want to see somebody who is well-rounded, has the ability to talk to all different types of people, has shown dedication and commitment to something, is the kind of person that stands out and has shown from a young age that they're the kind of person that can, really separate themselves from their peers with achievements or whatever that is. So things that work really well are, I always say, if you're not sure that, or if you don't have anything, now is a great time to start something. You've got almost a year, just shy of a year, to demonstrate excellence in something or to demonstrate commitment to something or growth. And anything is really useful, like learning a second language. Medicine, when you undertake a medical degree, you learn 30,000 new words. That's like learning a completely new language. So if you can learn a new language between now and then, everything's Latin based, so any of the Latin based languages will really be useful, because it shows that you can understand a new lexicon or a new kind of language, and that draws a lot of parallels with the learning that you have to undertake when you go to medical school. Similarly, doing things like learning an instrument and reading music, that's very similar. So, or even sports, they show a lot of the traits that you want to demonstrate. If you're in a team, teamwork is a big trait that they want to see, and I'll show you a bit more about that later. And also leadership. So if you're the captain of a team, or you don't even have to be a captain to lead a team, and that's a really important part as well. So there are loads of traits that you can demonstrate that would make you a good candidate to become a doctor just by doing a few things. So I think again, this is something that we spend time going through with our students, but here, a good guide is maybe three things I would consider are an instrument, a language, and a sport. Those can really put across a lot of traits quite nicely. So, presentation. So this is how you then take all of these ingredients and how you've prepared them and done all that stuff and put it together in a nice, neat package that makes them want to invite you to interview. So how you write your personal statement is really important. And the most important part of that is the reflection. So I always say it's not what you did, it's what you got out of it. So that's so important. And then the interview, it's all about just being able to answer all the kind of questions that they throw at you. Now, there are 2 types of interviews. There is either panel interviews or MMIs. Now, a general rule is that the universities that require the UCAT will do MMI, and the ones that require the BMAT will do panel interviews. Now, that's not 100% accurate, correct, but it's roughly a rule of thumb. Now, the difference between a panel interview and an MMI, let's, in the chat quickly, let's see, can people explain the difference, or if someone wants to unmute and explain to me what the difference is between a panel interview and an MMI interview? Yeah, multiple mini interviews. That's what MMI stands for. Anyone want to elaborate? Ramin, do you want to unmute and tell us a bit more about what you understand? Or Emusa, do you want to? Mic isn't working. I'm sure it is. Sure it's not. Okay, I don't know what a panel. Okay, so let's go through these. So an MMI consists of multiple mini stations or mini interviews. It has different stages, and then someone else has put. I don't know what a panel interview is, but MMI are split into 6 to 12 different sections all times. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So a panel interview is what. So MMIs are relatively new. I mean, they didn't exist. They were just coming in when I applied to medicine in when did I apply? 2006. So when I applied, I did actually sit a MMI interview at Manchester, which I passed and got an offer from, and that was the first time they were trying it. And what it is, so well, let me go through what it was before. So before MMIs, it was a panel interview where you would sit down with 3 to 4 people who could be quite scary sometimes. There would be 4 people behind a desk, and they would just basically all ask you questions and take it in turns. And it would probably be around 30 minutes or so to just ask you a variety of questions on a number of things. And they would maybe present some scenarios to you, but they would normally just ask you about you and your experiences, and it would be like a long conversation. Whereas MMI interviews are, as the name suggests, multiple mini interviews. So it's almost like a circuit of stations that you go through, and usually you get around 10 stations, and they're usually around 10 minutes, and each thing presents a different scenario. So they might ask you about your experience, they might ask you about your personal statement, but they might do things like breaking bad news and ask you to break bad news, which is basically you tell somebody about something bad that's happened, it's how you handle that and their reaction. Or they might ask you to explain something or teach something to somebody. They might ask you to interpret a graph and ask how you do that. So all a variety of skills that they might ask you to do. And that one is intended to be a bit more objective so that they can see how you perform over a series of stations rather than just one long conversation. So it's because the idea is that if one station goes badly, then you can make up for it elsewhere rather than maybe there are other ways that you could maybe be hindered by a bad start. So that is the way that MMIs are designed to work. So who we serve it to. So like I say, who you apply to as your medical school is arguably one of the most important things, because you can get great candidates that just choose the medical schools wrong based on their information or their strengths, and then unfortunately don't get the chance to shine or the chance to showcase their abilities, or don't get in front of an interview panel to kind of demonstrate how great they are. So really important to select the right universities, and we have lots of algorithms on our end for how we make sure that we are choosing the right universities for our students. So yeah, that comes with tactical application, basically. The whole who you serve it to is basically talking about applying tactically. Now, tactics can vary. We are very strategic about how we help our students, and there's essentially people have one of two goals. They either are like, I really want to go to Oxford University, and I'll just do everything I can to make sure I tailor my application to get in there and to be eligible. Or there are the other tactic that people have is, I just want to get in. I don't really mind, within reason, I don't mind too much where I go, and I just want to make my application suited to, or choose universities that are best suited to my strengths, and I'm going to make myself as strong as possible, and then that's how I'll select my universities. So there are two ways that you can do it, and like I say, either tactic is fine, but we just have to make sure that we are choosing universities that are going to best suit you as an individual. So it's not about, because a lot of people will come to me and say, what university should I go to? And I say it's not that simple. It's something, like I say, with our students, We'll sit down for hours to find that. It's not something that we do. Just it's not like I can give a generic answer, and that's the thing that people fall down on is they go with the generic answers and choose universities that I've heard this is great if you have this UCAT score. Well, there's a lot more to it than that. It's very nuanced. Okay, so attributes, they want to see that you've got the grades. So do everything within your power to make sure that you get the grades. Everything that we do at FutureDoc, where we help students get offers, is for nothing if you don't realize the offer by getting the grades. So a conditional offer will usually be made, usually around your A levels or achieving a certain uni degree level. And you need to make sure that you're prioritizing your grades to meet the eligibility requirements. If it's affordable, if you can do it, do whatever you can do to make sure you reach those grades. So get a tutor, whatever you need to do to make sure you meet it, because that is probably the one non-negotiable. There's very little flexibility. If you're out by a mark, unfortunately, it's very rare that universities will let people in if they don't meet the grades. Traits. So the good medical practice guidance or guidelines are a really good place to understand what the GMC, the General Medical Council, is looking for in in future doctors, right? So having a good understanding of this when you go to interview and write your personal statement, and when you do the SJT of the UCAT and various other bits of the medical application, really important to have an understanding of this to help guide you as to how you need to present yourself. Exposure. So we talked about getting the right kind of work experience. Aptitude test. Like I say, we really need to be aiming to do the best we can in the aptitude test. And, I'm really proud of how we teach UCAT, BMAT, and GAMSAT training at FutureDoc, because our students, like I say, we've had people who come to us with a previous attempt where they didn't do great, and they've come to us and improved their score massively. But also, we get people. The most important thing is the UCAT particularly can be quite a stressful exam for people, but we make people approach it in a much more calm fashion, and your ability to remain calm for the UCAT will basically mean that you perform better, because it's like being calm under pressure allows you to perform better. So we prepare our students in a way so that they are calm when they come to sit the UCAT, and have their mental facilities about them and optimally, so that they can really just give themselves the best chance of scoring highly. Cool. And then we talked about extracurriculars. Like I say, sport, a language, an instrument, usually good things. Keeping up to date with further reading. So New Scientist, I think Nature magazine is actually fantastic. I should add that to this slide. The student BMJ. So BMJ is the British Medical Journal that is run by the British Medical Association. So they're the union, basically. And they have a normal BMJ, but they also have a student BMJ. For those who are undertaking uni degrees, you can even write articles and be published in that, which is a fantastic way to stand out. Like I say, we talk a lot about all of the things that you can do to really boost that extracurricular segment, and it's how you get involved with research and prizes and publishing articles and all that sort of stuff, which we help a lot with. And BBC Health News is actually really fantastic. That's what I read a lot in the run-up to my application. Cool. So personal statement interviews, we've kind of talked about that. But these are such crucial steps, and the personal statement is of varying importance. Some will not read it. Some will, like King's College London. So Manchester say that they don't read it, and they ask you to do a kind of like something along the lines of a roles and responsibilities form, versus King's College London, which take a bit. So, for example, King's will do UCAT and experience, i.e., personal statement. So, really important part. So, you just need to make sure that you're presenting yourself in the best possible way with these. Okay, good. And tactics, we kind of talked about that as well. So we're kind of just summarizing the tactics of how we apply. And that can either be, like I say, I'm just going to build the best possible application I can, and I'm going to just make sure I get in. I'm not so bothered roughly where I go, versus, okay, I'm dead set on Imperial, and I really want to do everything within my power to get in there, and I'm going to tailor my application to suit what they like. Cool. So, as you guys probably know, we do lots of stuff at FutureDoc. There's, like I say, loads of free videos that we put out there for people. If you've not checked out the YouTube channel, I'd highly recommend that you do that. But one of our most successful programs is our one-on-one mentoring program, where we take students one-on-one, and we will coach you through the entire med school application process. And from that, we've got a 91% success rate with it. And like I say, it's about, normally these days, about 16% success rate. If you're a grad applicant, it's 34 applicants to one place. And like I say, with some of our guys applying to Newcastle last year, it was 42 applicants to one place, and we got them in there. And like I say, it's all about how we play the play the game of applying to medical school. It is a game. The better you play it, the more likely your chances of success. Actually, I think we have, I think Tijuana's come, who is one of our, she's one of the students who has now started medical school this year, and she really wanted to go to Anglia Ruskin University, and we helped her on the FutureDoc program. And so I think she's here now, who can tell you a little bit about her experience and kind of tell you how she managed to do it and the kind of help that she got from FutureDoc. So Tijuana, are you there? Let's see.
Hello, I'm here.
Hello. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Yeah, good. It's good to see you. This is the first time I've seen you since you started uni. So how's it going?
It's going well. It's quite a lot of work in the first few weeks, but apparently that's the same across most medical schools.
Baptism of fire, yes, absolutely.
Yes, but I'm enjoying it, and I've definitely picked the right university for myself. So that's all that really counted for me.
Fantastic. So yeah, well, I'll let you take it away. Tell them a little bit about kind of, because you joined us probably, it was kind of around February, wasn't it, in the run up to things? So go on, tell us a little bit about it.
So, as you probably already know, medical school is not becoming any easier to get into. And I just needed some support with applying strategically. As Ash has already spoken about this, how important it is to have your tactics all to the best possible ability that they can be. So I joined in order to get some more help and to just build up the strength of my application. And this is exactly what I got. So I just want to talk a little bit about the best points that I got from the program. I know that everybody worries about the UCAT, and that is completely normal. However, Ash is completely correct in saying that the calmer you are, the better. And it's proved to be the best strategy possible, because if you go into that UCAT exam and you are panicking, you are almost hindering yourself. So my best advice would be, keep calm, as stressful as it is. I know how you can go in there and you feel like everything is waiting on this whole exam. And it's just important to take a step back and realize that you can only give it your best shot. So definitely go in with that attitude if you can. With interviews, I know everyone could be also a bit worried about interviews, but with the FutureDoc program, I got so much interview preparation and support. I actually enjoyed the interviews the most out of the whole application process. And why shouldn't you? Because it's your time to turn around and say, this is why you should choose me, not the other medical student applicants who are also applying. So I think with the application, you've really just got to try and enjoy it. As weird as that may seem at the moment, you have just got to um, take all the best parts and enjoy your application, because medicine doesn't get any easier. Um, so if you can just find the parts that you enjoy and it's keep yourself healthy about it, then it will all work out for the best. Um, One particular day that I enjoyed with FutureDoc was an in-person interview day. Now, I know that a lot of medical schools are looking to put their interviews back in person, and that's completely understandable because it's easier to read body language and things in person than it is online. So this interview day was really helpful. I got to go around different stations and just experience what it's really like, because as much as I enjoyed it, the only reason why I could enjoy my interviews is because I'd had so much practice and I was comfortable in that environment, because it is a different environment to what you're used to. But if you get the preparation, you can do well in them. Of course, you can. Um, and I would say that another aspect of FutureDoc that I really enjoyed was my personal tutor. So I still talk to my personal tutor now, and he really supported me. And he also just helped me to navigate all aspects of it. So he would ensure that, I was keeping my mental health in check, and also just going through the process and realizing that you've got to enjoy the process. Like I've been stressing that. I really do mean that. You have to enjoy it as much as you can, because if you don't, um, it can take a negative impact on you. So don't try not to go down that route. But the major underlying thing of FutureDoc is the support, and it's the structure that it brings to you during the application process, because there is so much to do, and I completely get that. But when I was working with FutureDoc, I just felt like I didn't even really have to worry, because I knew that I had all these people supporting me, and I kind of felt like part of a big family, which is really nice when you're applying, because of how many different emotions it can provoke. It's stressful, it's tiring, but when I was part of this big family, as I said, it just took that away, and I I couldn't thank them anymore for what they've done. And I would really recommend it to anyone, because, as I said, medical school is not getting any easier to apply to. So if you can, get support and get in, that's the best way forward, I think.
Oh, thank you, Tiana. It's very nice to hear, and thank you for your kind words. Because, yeah, I mean, it's lovely, and especially kind of it's early in the year when we're getting all the great news through that people are getting offers and they're starting medical school, and it's great to speak to Tijuana today and to see that you're thriving and really enjoying it, and the all the hard work has paid off. But I think exactly what Tijuana says. It's like there are two camps of med school applicant. One can make it very, very stressful, and it's like a really difficult process and unpleasant, and yeah, just like I say, very stressful. And then weirdly, you can make it enjoyable, and by like I say, being well prepared and just really taking the time and having, I think us organizing you is a big contributing factor to that. But I think, like I say, when it comes to interviews, it's that thing of like, oh, actually, I know I'm really good, so I'm going to go and kind of almost show off and go and not show off, because obviously I'm not saying to be arrogant or overconfident, but to be excited to showcase all the things that you've achieved and be proud of that. And yeah, and it's the same with all the other elements. When you write your personal statement, when you sit the exams, when you do your work experience, all of the stuff that contributes to a great med school application, you can make it enjoyable by being organized and on it, basically. So actually, as it happens, because we're always having people graduate from the FutureDoc program because they are, they've got their place. So then we've done our job. We have some places free up because we have limited availability on the FutureDoc program, and it's application only. You have to submit an application and then have an interview with either myself or one of my team, and then we can decide whether we can offer you a place to help you. So I've actually just had probably, I think it's about 6 or 7 places free up recently. So I'm going to put in the chat now where you can apply to that. So if you guys click on the link to just at least click on it before I close the call, because then at least you've got it somewhere. But I want to open the floor to people to ask me or ask Tijuana any questions about. You can ask Tijuana about interviews or about the program or about her life as a med student so far, because she's very fresh to it. What are you now? Probably about a month into med school now.
I'm 6 weeks in, so I start my 7th week next week.
7th week, yeah, right. To understand, so if you want to ask Tijuana about what it's like in the first almost 2 months of medicine, I'm sure she'd love to hear it. So you can either unmute or pop them in the chat. Feel free to chat. Anybody? What's been your favorite thing of med school so far, Tijuana?
Well, that's a good question. Probably getting here and realizing that I've picked the right course for me because of the way that all medical schools differ in the way they teach. But when I got here and I got all of my lecturers and my personal tutor, I was like, oh, I've definitely picked the right place.
Yeah,
that was a good feeling.
Great. I was going to say, there's a question in the chat: is how's the workload?
Okay. So
honest answer.
Yes, the way that Andy Ruskin teach it. So in the first 9 weeks, we do principles, and they really, they give you a lot of work in principles, but it's all for a good reason. It's to give us that underlying knowledge before we start our blocks. It is a lot of work. There is a lot to do, and it's hard to adapt because a lot of the time you can't take your A-level working strategy into medicine. It has to change because of the content type and how much you have. So it can be hard to adapt in that sense, but you will get used to it and you will be able to adapt. They don't pick you for no reason. I can promise you that right now. They know that you're capable and you'll be able to do it.
Yeah. I think for me it's hard. I mean, it was a bit of a shock, but I think you quickly kind of have to. It's a bit sink or swim, isn't it? But I think once you get past the first term and first year, I did find that it was easier after that. So did you struggle with the UCAT?
I did, yeah, of course I did. I found the UCAT quite challenging, but the most important thing for me was keeping myself calm. That is something that took time and took practice, but it is probably the best piece of advice I can give you. If you keep calm, you are one step ahead of the UCAT in a sense when you go into that room, because it can be daunting. But and also all of the UCAT online tutorials that I had with FutureDoc, that really helped because it meant that I could, feel like I've got a good grasp of each section. And so that gave me a bit more confidence.
What do you think helped improve your score the most, if you had to say?
Knowing the ways to approach the questions. So I remember we had a session with Kenji, and he was telling us about the different ways of approaching the questions and how you can use like tips and tricks to understand the patterns. And that was really useful because without those, I mean, the UCAT's just kind of like one big blind test. So you do have to know your tips and tricks.
Yeah, great. And it paid off obviously because getting in the top deciles. What a big contributing factor. So the other question I was going to ask, oh, so another one that I've had was, so what appealed to you about, what appealed to you about Anglia Ruskin compared to other options?
Yeah. So I think with Anglo Ruskin, the way that they teach is very, very good. They are partnered with Dundee, and so the way that they teach it is they do a principles block for 9 weeks, and then they go into the different blocks. So after this, I'll be doing the respiratory block, and then we do the cardiovascular and the GI. Um, and I really like that method of learning because it means that when I'm in the block, I can like zone into extra research on respiratory, because I find it really hard to start like twisting between different subjects. I think that can be quite challenging because you can't necessarily do as much research into the areas as you want to. Um, but when you go into the blocks, it means that you can dive deeper. So if you have a question, you can like go into that, or possibly like do a little bit more research on it. Also, I like the way that we get to know our lecturers. So our lecturers are starting to know us by name now, and it feels so supportive. I have a personal tutor who has been amazing, and I cannot fault them at all for that. That they are so supportive. They care so much about us as people and our mental health, and making sure that we are okay. We're not just medical students, that we're actually, living our lives outside of medicine. And I think that's so important. And so that is one of the main factors why I chose them. But they also offer full body dissection, and we've started on that. So that is another key factor that drew me to.
How was the first day of dissection? I remember it was like people were dropping like flies at first because everyone was feeling a bit faint from it. But takes a bit of it's funny how the first day is a bit daunting, and then by the second week, everybody's in full swing and everyone's completely used to it.
No, it was actually fine. We didn't have that many people who were sort of passing out or anything, so our
Okay.
year was quite good.
Okay.
It was obviously a weird experience, but it was strange. There were so many emotions because you're so appreciative of the fact that this person's given their body to you to medical education. But then it's like all of those recognizing that that's a person and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing, and I think as you learn more about the human body, whenever I go through anatomy, I'm always refreshing certain bits of anatomy knowledge, and I always think it's incredible how just beautifully designed the human body is, because it's just fascinating. The more you go into it, the more you think, gosh, it's so easy for things to go wrong with the body that it's a miracle that everything goes right.
Yeah,
Mm,
there's so much there. It's so complex, and it's like, wow, so this actually just works all the time, most of the time. But yeah, it's
mm.
amazing.
So Mahi said, please give me some advice for personal statement. I can give some, but if you've got anything, T1, I think they'd probably appreciate it from you more.
Yeah. I'd say be yourself. That is so important. Try to come across as, so when I was writing my personal statement, I was thinking about what sort of doctor I want to come across as being. So instead of just saying like, oh, I do this and then I do that and then I did that as well, I was trying to let them know that the sort of person I am. So the way that you're writing it is important, and how you approach um, talking about emotional situations and things like that is really important. So be the doctor that you want them to see you as, is what I would say.
Yeah, I think it's really important to, like I said a few times when we talk about anything that you do, and this is part of the how you present it in your in your personal statement, in your interview. It's that it's not so much what you did, it's what you got out of it, and they want to see that you know, I might, you could have somebody who's had the most amazingly impressive experience, but if they can't get the basics of understanding what that's taught them, then that's not the same as somebody who's done probably the most mundane experience, but really reflected on it well, and kind of understood what the career is, or what the traits they need to develop are, or just what the life of a doctor is like and how to manage that. So that's the sort of things that they want to see. Is this person the kind of person that can grow into being a great doctor? Because they don't want to, they understand that you're not the finished article by any means, and that you're just a person with the potential to get there when you do. Cool. Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you, Tijuana. Thank you for coming today. It's great. It's great to see you, and I'm so glad to see that you're doing so well. And yeah, it's just really nice to see that medical school is treating you so well as well. And you know, you're happy with where you ended up going. So yeah, lovely to see you. And thank you everybody for coming today. Like I say, I'll just post. So as I say, we've only got about, I think it's 6 or 7. I'm not quite, I'd have to check how many places, but we don't have many places left on the program. So if you want to apply, like I say, it is application only. And just click on the link in the chat now if you want to apply. And like I say, just book that and book the interview if you are successful with the application. But thank you everybody for coming today. You can always email me if you have any questions. But we'll wrap it up there. Here's my email in the chat. Let me just pop that there. So yeah, any questions, feel free to reach out to me there. But I'll leave you all to it now, and I'm sure you've got weekends to be getting on with. So thank you for coming, and I shall see you all soon. All right.
Oh, I just want to say something. Abdal just said about his work experience.
Okay.
Um, about the volunteers in the hospital. That's great. If you can reflect on that, as long as you reflect on it, say what you've developed from it, any sort of experience like that is great to talk about in your personal statement.
Cool. Yeah. All exposure is good. There's no, I mean, like I say, can always help with making it optimal, but anything that you're doing in hospital, remember that thing I said about proximity earlier. If you're in hospital, you set the, when I was in hospital, I kind of set the stage for good luck to happen. And that's kind of how it works. So yeah. So thank you everybody. Hope you have a great weekend, and thanks for coming. Great.